Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Inclusive Recruitment webinar, a collaboration between the Belonging Effect and Step Up Education Social Enterprise. My name is Ben. I'm the founder of Step Up Network. I'm pleased to be hosting alongside the amazing Hannah. Hannah, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. I know lots of you are joining us live, but also lots of you are catching up on the recording at some point this week. So thank you for joining us for this really important topic.
Hannah, would you like to start by saying a bit more about Belonging Effect, and then I'll go second?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of you will know us as Diverse Educators. We started nearly 8 years ago now as a grassroots group. Diverse Ed became Diverse Educators 5 years ago, and then this September we evolved into the Belonging Effect, and that's for a number of different reasons. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I've written quite a provocative blog today about belonging being a bit of a plaster on the problem, but equally belonging is the door opener, and we know we've got a bit of an anti-woke agenda globally, but also a bit of a DEIB rollback. So we wanted to really make sure that our work is still accessible, and that schools, colleges and trusts aren't sort of put off due to that sort of like community resistance when it comes to the politics around this topic. We will also do more and more work outside of education as well. I think it's so transferable, the things we talk about. We wanted to drop the name educators actually from our name. So that's who we are. Got a team of 15 people, and all the speakers tonight are people who we love and respect and do quite a lot of collaborations with, including yourself, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah, for that introduction. And Hannah was probably one of the first people we reached out to when we set up Step Up nearly 3 years ago now. So Step Up is a grassroots social enterprise and network for people within education who wish to develop their career somehow. So we used to have like the tagline for new and aspiring leaders in education. But if you look at our community is much wider and broader than that. And we have a wide range of people. And I think it's important to remember that education doesn't just span schools, it spans much further than that, and ultimately we're not here just for teachers, we are here for educators and anyone who works in education, has an interest in education. So we very much focus on making leadership in particular more accessible, more diverse and more flexible, and that's partly why we wanted to run this event tonight and run it in collaboration with the Belonging Effect as well. So we're going to start with why. As I remember Hannah and I doing an event before where we both actually did PowerPoints with start with why, but we didn't really speak about it, and we realized how aligned we were in that thinking. So the reason why we're here is because we know that retention and recruitment is an ongoing topic of conversation, and it can very much be a topic of conversation, or you can actually do something about it. And yes, we can't change a whole system and sector-wide thing, but we can change and influence what we do within our organizations, and also not necessarily in your whole organization, but within your teams and how you lead as well. We know that actually, if you break that down further, if you look at retention recruitment and the reasons sort of why, we talk about at Step Up, there are a lot of gaps within education, and we talk about closing the gap in schools for children, but we don't necessarily we talk about as much for our staff and our adults as well. So I've given some examples there on the slides: the gender pay gap, the diversity gap, the flexible working gap, and ultimately employers are required to do things differently and think differently. And talent management and succession planning recruitment, if you talk to lots of people outside of education, they probably talk about it a lot more and know about it a lot more than we do in schools. And I think a lot of the time, the talent management and succession planning is lost because ultimately people look elsewhere for the roles that they want, because either they don't feel like, as Hannah talked about belonging earlier, they don't feel they belong there, or there aren't the opportunities there, or it is not inclusive and flexible enough in their current organisation there. So that is our starting point of why we're here tonight.
And if I could just add to that to say that we do a lot of training in this space. And I sometimes get the pushback, Hannah, we just need somebody to apply, because we know we're in a recruitment crisis and we're also in a retention crisis. And I do know that recruitment is really hard at the moment, and we've got more vacancies than we have applicants. But my call to action for everyone tonight is that is even more reason for why we need to innovate and be courageous and do things differently, and really think about, actually, there's a lot of traditionality and conservatism when it comes to recruitment in any sector. I do think schools and education is quite old-fashioned still, This is an opportunity for us to really shake that up and do things differently. So tonight is about us thinking about recruitment. Sometimes people call this diversifying recruitment, and I call it inclusive recruitment, because it's not just about getting diverse people through the door. It's thinking about what does an inclusive school workplace look and feel like? What does an inclusive recruitment process feel like for the candidates as well? So just diversity alone isn't enough, because we hear horror stories about settings that have really attracted and recruited diverse candidates who have not stayed very long because the environment has not changed for them. Okay, so that's why it's inclusive. Tonight's going to be really practical. All of the people talking have got various lived experiences, but also leadership and professional experiences. They are disrupting either in their own school, college or trust, or across the system through their grassroots. So hopefully there's going to be lots of practical strategies, tips and experiences for you to take away. Some of you might be here because you are looking to change your setting and you're looking for tips and tricks. Or some of you might be here because you are a senior leader or a chair of governors or someone who works in HR. I know a lot of our HR network are here tonight as well. So either way, there's going to be a value add. And we've very carefully curated a diverse lineup. So you hear a range of different perspectives of people who are going to share quite honestly and candidly some of the barriers that just don't need to be there, and some of the things that have worked or haven't worked. So we've got the two panels, and we're going to look at both sides of the table, the applicant's perspective and also the recruiter's perspective as well.
Thanks, Hannah. And talking of our panel, as Hannah said, we've got two panels. We'll talk a bit more about the logistics of tonight in a moment. And they, as Hannah said, they all represent different organisations, different perspectives, and to try and get that full rounded experience of inclusive recruitment. I think sometimes we can talk about recruitment from just the person applying and looking for a role's perspective, and then the person who's doing, or the people doing the recruitment perspective, as separate things. And we often only talk about it when we are ready to recruit or need to. We're not even ready, I would say, when we need to recruit, as opposed to being prepared to recruit. And that's sort of that way of looking things that's slightly different. So we wanted to mix, and also knowing that actually some people here do both. Some people are looking for a role and will be looking for promotion. I know many of the Step Up community do, but they might also be leaders in schools that have to do this as well. So there's the twofold as well. So we're really grateful to our panelists for giving up their time tonight to join us. George, Janoy, Lindsay, Nadine, Susie, Uta and Yamina. We will give individual instructions for each panel, so they'll introduce themselves and tell you a bit more about themselves. But they're all people that are big supporters of our organisations and we've worked with before.
Absolutely. And on the next slide, these are the organisations they are representing. So Nadine's the founder of Aspiring Heads, a fantastic social enterprise, really looking at how we diversify the talent pipeline. We are underrepresented when it comes to the sector, when it comes to people of colour specifically in senior leadership roles and headship roles. And I had the privilege of going to their conference earlier in the year, and the energy was just palpable. And the appetite and the ambition in the room was also really present. And it's us thinking about how we as a system are changing the face of leadership. Janoy is here from Black Men Teach, one half of the founders with Albert, again doing amazing work for one of the most underrepresented groups in the sector, that we are underrepresented when it comes to the global majority, but Black men specifically are really underrepresented when it comes to governance, leadership and teaching. So thinking about the need to create visible role modelling and support networks for that identity group. Chiltern Teaching School are one of the MATs and teaching school hubs who are really disrupting in this space and doing things differently. So if you've not heard of REND, R-E-N-D, they are the founders of a social movement called Racial Equity Networking Dinners. They've been running them for 7 or 8 years now from Luton. And that has mobilised to now those events happening in Birmingham, Northampton, London, Leeds, Manchester, and we hosted the Bristol one recently. Because one of the things I want you to think about tonight is that you can't just put an advert out there and hope for the best that diverse candidates are going to see it or apply. It's about you carefully curating and expanding your networks beyond your schools, colleges and trusts, and going to events like REND are a great way to do that. You are going to meet people you might not normally cross paths with, and those opportunities can then build bridges. Lindsay's here, again, one half of the co-founders of Flexible Teacher Talent with Lucy, doing amazing work when it comes to flexing the system. They started before the Flexible Working Bill was published, and they're now really helping the system respond to that legislation change. So you're going to hear lots of brilliant ideas and case studies from her. And then last but not least, we've got George here, and George is doing some really disruptive and important work when it comes to trans inclusion across the education system, but also specifically thinking about faith settings and Catholic schools, and will be here to share their journey as a trans educator. So the quick link on the slides here takes you to the Belonging Effects website, and all the organisations represented tonight have their own page on there, so you can go and find them and connect with them post tonight's event. Back to you, Ben.
Thanks, Hannah. And I've just, for everyone, posted the link in the chat, so if you're watching live, so tonight, this is our schedule. So as we spoke about, we've got a brief introductions now, and then we're going to have 2 panels. And as Hannah said, we're going to look at it from the 2 perspectives and sort of bring that together at the end through the Q&A and the call to action and next steps, because we want, yes, I'm sure we'll have, because I know of our amazing lineup, we'll have so many ideas and thoughts and experiences, and that's great, but we need to make sure that we're putting that into action in our own context and roles and communities as well. Hannah, final one, I think, is just to clarify. I know we've covered a lot of this, but to just clarify that meaning of it before we begin.
Absolutely. I forgot the slide was here, so thank you for the reminder. It was my slide. So yeah, what do we mean by inclusive recruitment? This is just a working definition that we have used here. So as I've already mentioned, it's thinking about all those different aspects. We often get asked too late to support. And what I mean by that is the advert's out and you've got applicants, and I get a phone call from the CEO or the chair of governors, Hannah, we need some help. We haven't got diverse candidates. We need to be talking 6 months before that. So it's really thinking about every single touch point through a recruitment process, from how we are attracting candidates to who is applying, who's not applying, how we are interviewing them, and how we're also then onboarding them, and who is part of that process at every single stage. When I do this recruitment training, I ask people to map out all the different people involved in the process. They get quite overwhelmed. So training for the governor or the head teacher is not enough. Every single person involved in the process should, as a minimum, have unconscious bias training. But really, you need much deeper DIB training to get everybody to understand their part in it. And what we really need to be considering is the value we are adding to our whole school community, the value that our pupils are going to experience by having visible role models, teaching them, leading them, governing them, but also the value that it adds to all the colleagues who are there as well about what is possible. I worry sometimes we tell our young people you can be anything you want to be, but when you then see the staff teaching them and leading them, we're really undermining what we're saying there. So yeah, back to you, Ben, for us to get started with the first panel.